the depths of history, a tale unfolds of a trade that brought darkness, of stories untold. Across the mighty oceans, lives were torn apart, a chapter stained in blood, etched in human hearts. Oh, the transatlantic slave trade, it grell and beat a storm, only shame, chains and suffering, forever to transform. But from the ashes rise, voices singing free, united against injustice.
All right, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Akwaba. So you can say Medasi. All right, so my name is Justice Kwabena Akwa. I'm going to be your guide, and I will lead you through today's experience. I prefer to call this an experience than a tour, because this is not something you laugh about. This is something you reflect on. So it's a pleasure to lead this experience today. So before we visit the male dungeons, I'm going to give you a brief history about this edifice. The British called it Cape Coast Castle. Well, in actual sense, this is a dungeon. Yes, this building dates back to the 17th century. This was built in 1665 by the British. And of course, the British couldn't have constructed something like this without the help of local labor. So unfortunately, or unknowingly, we constructed our dungeons as Africans. This is the third or the last castle the Europeans constructed along the coast of Ghana. 12 kilometers west from here, we have St. George's Castle, or Elmina Castle, built by Portugal around 1482. It's almost 180 years older than Cape Coast dungeons. We have the other one in Accra called Christiansborg Castle. That was Denmark, 1661. And apart from the castles, we have over 20 forts. It was estimated that the coast of West Africa and Central Africa had about 50 European castles and forts. And out of that number, Ghana had about 40 of them. So Ghana had over 80% of all the castles and forts this region had. So you will wonder why Ghana had that much. You know, Ghana had that much as a result of gold. Gold attracted Europeans to this part of the world. But unfortunately, often, you know, there's this Eurocentric version of our history. You know, they tell it in a way that make it sound like, you know, nothing was going on in Africa. They just got here and they just found gold. But they knew exactly what they were looking for. They don't talk to us about the civilizations in Africa. They don't talk to us about the empires and kingdoms that existed before they came. Today, I will speak briefly about the Mali Empire. So when I talk about the Mali Empire, this was from the 12th, 13th century. The Mali Empire is present day countries we call Mali, Mauritania, Niger, Chad, Senegal, and Nigeria. It had Timbuktu to be the capital. They had an emperor by the name Mansa Musa. 1324, Mansa Musa traveled from Timbuktu to Mecca on the pilgrimage. He traveled with a lot of gold. Any city he got to, he gave the poor gold. By giving the poor gold, he actually devalued the price of gold in those cities. So for example, Mansa Musa will devalue the price of gold in Egypt for 12 years. So let's say if an ounce of gold was selling for $500 before he reached Egypt, he gave so much gold that when he left, the next 12 years, an ounce of gold will go for like $5 or $10. So this news about Mansa Musa and his wealth in gold spread all over. This news reached Europe. Europeans deduced that if Mansa Musa is devaluing the price of gold, then it means there's so much gold where this man is coming from. So that was a motivation. That's how come Europeans came here 1471. And unfortunately, they had what they searched for. They called that area La Mina. And 1482, they constructed the first European structure in sub-Saharan Africa. Ghana's coast was flooded with forts and castles as a result of that. But ladies and gentlemen, today, when we talk about Cape Coast dungeons, or when we talk about Cape Coast Castle, this one was constructed as a result of the transatlantic trafficking of Africans. You know, I prefer to call this trafficking than trade, because I see no trade about what our ancestors endured in the dungeons and on the ships. This building was actually the headquarters for British or for English trafficking activities on the continent of Africa. Now, this building was constructed in 1664, 1665 by the Royal African Company of England. Sorry, the Royal Adventurers of England. And in 1672, one of the kings in England by name King Charles II granted another charter to another company to traffic people here. They called it the Royal African Company of England. So from 1672 onwards, the British would traffic some 70,000 people from these places per annum. So from 1672 onwards, they were trafficking over about 70,000 people every year from this place. So this was the headquarters for English trafficking activities on the continent of Africa. And again, the English are the well-defined destination for the people they trafficked. Many ended up in North America. So when we talk about North America, I'm talking about United States of America. And within the US, there were 5 entry points. The first entry point was Jamestown, Virginia, Charleston, South Carolina, Savannah, Atlanta, Georgia, Baltimore, Maryland, and New York. Others ended up in Jamaica, St. Lucia, Barbados, Guyana, Belize, Bermuda, Trinidad and Tobago, and a few ended up in England. So today, we shall bear witness to those crimes that was committed against humanity. And one more thing I would like to draw your attention to before we see the dungeons. So we have the male dungeons, and right above the male dungeons was the Church of England. Yeah, so there's a church right above a dungeon. And it's nothing new here, because if you should visit the other dungeons, if you visit Elmina and Christiansborg Castle in Accra, they did the same thing. The Dutch built their church on the female dungeon in Elmina, and the Danish built their church on one of the dungeons in Christiansborg Castle also. So this tells you that the church was deep rooted in this evil. The church invented the transatlantic trafficking and also participated in it. And when I say the church, I'm talking about the Catholic Church, the Dutch Reformed Church, the Danish Church, and the Anglican Church. So around the 15th century, one Pope Nicholas V or so granted or sanctioned sanctioned Spain and Portugal that they could go ahead and enslave Africans, do as they wish with Africans, all because Africans have no souls to be saved, and God is not going to judge them for all the evil they do against Africans. Again, the Dutch Reformed Church and the Church of England also came out with another propaganda that Africans are cursed, because Africans are descendants of Cain and Ham. You know, when we read the Bible, they say Cain killed Abel, right? And they are now saying that Cain is a black man, and God cares the black man to suffer. Ham saw Noah's nakedness, and they say Ham is a black man also. So this is what the church fraudulently or maliciously justified using the Bible. Again, the church did not only invent this, the church participated in it. So when you go to North America, you know, there's a branch of the Catholic Church called the Jesuit. You know, the Jesuit owned and operated plantation farms within the United States. When you go to Barbados also, the Church of England owned and operated the Codrington's plantations. So the church made immense wealth on the backs of Africans. Yeah. Any questions or comments before I lead you through the dungeons? All right, and please Be very careful. It's 4 steps down into the dungeons. The last step drops a little bit. It's slopey and slippery, so I will urge all of you to take it easy. And let's keep to the left, or you can follow me as we go in. Yeah.
All humanity. From Africa's shores, they were forced to part, torn from their families, broken from the start, shapes of despair, where hope was but a tread. They sailed towards the future, to a world unknown. So that ocean lords, like mere commodities, treated like some property, stripped off their dignity. The cotton fields of sorrow, where dreams would wither. Yet I miss
All
the
right, brothers and
pain.
sisters, we are now in the male dungeons, and trust me, this is the biggest dungeon you will ever see when we talk about the trafficking of Africans about 400 years ago. This dungeon, the English built to hold over 500 to 1,000 captives. So this dungeon was meant for boys and men. The age range was from 11, 12, 13, 14 to 40. So it tells you that Africans were stolen away from here in their prime and not in their retirement or after retirement. And this continued for 300 plus years. They divided this dungeon into rooms, and we have 5 of them. To my very left, that is the first room. This is the second room. We have 3 extra rooms behind you. Every room can hold over 100 to 200. Let me show you the first room. We can come in. Sorry.
Look down, there's trenches here.
Please be very careful. Yeah, we can come in. Yeah, we can come in. Yeah, be very careful. Okay, so what you see on the floor, these were drains or gutters to move out toilet, urine, vomit, blood, tears into the ocean. Did not survive the dungeons and the ships. And this continued throughout the entire course of the trafficking of Africans. Language was a barrier in the dungeons because they were trafficked from different ethnic groups. They had water and food every day. Food and water was not for satisfaction.
In the depths of history, the tale unfolds of a trader brought darkness, of stories untold.
So when you take a good look on the floor, you realize that it looks different. Yes. So what we are standing on now is solidified human waste. So all over it, solidified feces, urine, vomit, blood, tears, sweat, all the things our ancestors left, we are standing right on them. And right above us was the Church of England, the Anglican Church. And up there, that was a spy hole. Some of the guards would just stand there, watch, and know what's going on. The entrance of that spy hole is closer to the entrance of the church. So whoever passed by to worship God or Jesus could smell whatever was going on. These rooms had no doors. The movement within these rooms of this dungeon was so limited. You were chained and shackled in a way that all the time you were stuck at one place at a time. You could be surrounded with dead bodies. They will not immediately remove dead bodies. So the dead could be with the living here for hours or for a whole day before the bodies was either removed and thrown into the ocean or a mass burial being done for them outside the walls of this dungeon. Any questions or comments? All right, so let's have a look at the last chamber. The last room.
The cotton fields of sorrow, where dreams would wither. Yet I
All right,
missed
so
the
yes, it's
rain.
slippery, so please watch out. Yeah.
Their spirits rose like river. Oh, the transatlantic slave tread. The grill and beat a storm. Only shame, chains and suffering. Forever to transform. But from the ashes rise. Voices singing free. United against injustice. For all humanity. Oh, the transatlantic slave trade.
All right, so this is the last room, ladies. You realize that this particular room is brighter than the other rooms. This room is because when the ship arrived, they didn't just move our ancestors, ships, they were sought through. So they would do that in the daytime. In the daytime, we could clearly see who was sick and who was strong enough to survive the Middle Passage. If you were deemed sick and unfit to survive, it meant that within the next hour or two, you will die. So they will leave you here to die and they will dispose of your body. And when all was done, they will not move them out into the ships daytime. No, they will do that midnight or early at dawn. So all the time you were associated with darkness, right? So that's more of a mental torture. So all the time they are trying to create confusion and chaos in your head. So they did both the physical damage and the mental damage. When the ships arrived, they didn't take them out the same way they brought them in. No. To my left, this entire wall, this wall used to be an entrance to a tunnel. So what I'm trying to say is, at some point in time, this end was opened up. So in chains and in shackles, all the men were forced through a long and dark tunnel of about 100 meters long to the door of no return. And from the door of no return, they forced them on the ships. It is rather unfortunate today we cannot go through the tunnel. The tunnel is closed. Symbolically, the British closed the tunnel to mark the end of the transatlantic trafficking. So when we go up again, I'm going to show you some part of the tunnel and the exit. Also, there's this altar. This is new here, but it is not new to the land. I'm saying it is not new to the land because before Europeans and Arabs introduced Christianity or Islam, we had our own way of communicating to the Supreme Being because we had the knowledge and belief that God is nature and nature is God. So wherever you can touch, see, or feel nature, God is present. Just communicate, he's going to hear you out. We also had the knowledge and belief that we have ancestors we can communicate through. So an ancestor is somebody who lived on earth and lived a morally upright life. So when you are no longer with us, we have the knowledge that you are closer to the Supreme Being. So whenever libation is poured, we mention the name of our ancestors to intercede on our behalf. But unfortunately, years of slavery and colonization made what we practiced here or made what we believed in here look demonic. But look at this. Some people will travel somewhere and go around a stone, right? Some people will go somewhere, travel somewhere again and touch some walls and pray. Some people will go through some river. But when the African communicates through his ancestors, or that's the same, they call it names like, some people will go to church. In the church, they have a statue of St. Judas, St. Thomas, St. Peter. They kneel down in front of these statues and pray and mention their name. But they don't call it Satanism or demonic. So you see the hypocrisy here. So before Europeans occupied this space was a sacred ground for the people. They only came here to communicate to their maker and left. But Europeans came and forced Africans out. In the 1970s, this altar was erected, the sacred stones was returned. So to date, people come here to pray to God. That room is part of the dungeons also. They kept some of our ancestors there. And also we have wreaths, many of them on behalf of brothers and sisters coming from the diaspora, and some of them on behalf of visitors and diplomats, all in memory of our ancestors. Any questions or comments before we continue from here? All right, so brothers and sisters, my elders, this area was the courtyard of the castle, and section of this courtyard was the graveyard for Europeans only. Another interesting thing I want you to note here. This grave. This is the only African grave among Europeans. Right? He was known as Quaque Ejir. Quaque means he's a male Wednesday Akan born. But unfortunately, the first step of Europeans, mentally enslaving us was to change our identity, or was to change our names. So he was Quaque Ejir. He was born 1741. He was sent to England age 11. He was baptized, and now he was called Phillip Quaque. So unfortunately, years of slavery and colonization, we were forced to adapt our colonizer's name or our enslaver's name. This is what happened to us here. He was trained and educated at Oxford. He graduated from Oxford 1765. And after graduation, he was ordained as a priest for the Anglican Church, or the Church of England. He became the first African to become a priest for the Anglican Church. And after his ordination as a priest, he was returned to this place. I say, Monka Sanembro from Ata. So, after his ordination as a priest in London, he was returned to this place, 1766. Let's look at the timeline. 1766, that was a peak of the Atlantic trafficking. Right, so he was returned as a teacher, a priest, and a missionary. And also think about it. An African was returned. He led an all-European congregation upstairs, and downstairs his fellow Africans were there chained and in shackles. He witnessed all the evil going on here, but did not say anything against it or for it. So we say he was sent to England to be indoctrinated, reprogrammed, brainwashed, so that he could come back home and lead his people to doom. Others will say, oh, he didn't have a choice. He couldn't say anything. He'll be killed. But I'll give you a typical example. In Virginia, there was an enslaved man called Nat Turner. Right? He was also given a Bible to preach to his fellow Africans that slavery is good. And no matter what the master do to you, accept him, love him. Well, he was also told to lead his people to doom. But what did Nat Turner say? He said, no, I should be rather the Moses of my people. I should liberate my people from this suffering. So he rebelled. He had a choice. And he rebelled against oppression. But here, nothing of that. So he went with the normal flow. And when he died, his masters recognized him, honored him, and buried him among them here. Yeah, so he died 1816 when he was 75 years old, and he was buried right here.
In the depths of history, a tale unfolds of a trader brought darkness, of stories untold. Across the mighty oceans, lives were torn apart. A chapter stained in blood, etched in human hearts. Oh, the transatlantic slave trade, it grell and beat a storm, only changes and suffering, forever to transform. But from the ashes rise, voices singing free, united against injustice, for all humanity. From Africa's shores, they were forced to part, torn from their families, broken from the start. ships of despair, where hope was but a tread. They sailed towards the future, to a world unknown, so that ocean looks like mere commodities, treated like some property, stripped off their dignity. The cotton fields of sorrow, where dreams would wither, yet amidst the pain, their spirits rose like river. Oh, the transatlantic slave trade, it quell and beat a storm, unleashing chains and suffering, forever to transform. But from the ashes rise, voices singing free, united against injustice, for all humanity. Oh, the transatlantic slave trade, it quell and beat a storm, unleashing chains and suffering, forever to transform. But from the ashes rise, voices singing free, united against injustice, for all humanity. In the depths of history, a tale unfolds of a trade that brought darkness, of stories untold. Across the mighty oceans, lives were torn apart. A chapter stained in blood, etched in human hearts. Oh, the transatlantic slave trade, it quell and beat a storm, unleashing chains and suffering, forever to...
Right, I hope you will all remember in the male dungeons I spoke to you about a tunnel where all the men were forced through to the door of no return when the ships arrived. We are standing right on top of the tunnel. So when we go down that way again, I'm going to show you some part of the tunnel and the exit. Also, you find cannonballs behind you. There are guns or cannons in front of you. You know, these balls and guns are European trafficking companies best spot to traffic people out. Historically, this land changed hands 5 times among 5 trafficking Western European countries. The first one was Portugal. They were here from the 1550s to the 1610s. Portugal left, Sweden took the space 1653. Sweden built a fort called Carolsberg and also trafficked people through it. 1658, Denmark fought Sweden and took over, another trafficking country. Holland also fought Denmark, 1660 took over. 1664, England also fought Holland. So when the British took over, they built this and lived here from 1664 to 1957. So the British lived here for almost 300 years. So for almost 200 plus years, the British were trafficking Africans from here. And when the trafficking of Africans ended, they colonized Africa and stole its natural resources and also disoriented, caused chaos, confusion, and manipulated the people here. The body of water we see there is the Atlantic Ocean. So our ancestors were forced on this ocean to North America, the Caribbean, the West Indies, Central and South America. And around, the water is very shallow. So the ships had to dock some distance away. They placed them on boat and forced them on the ships. So I will lead you again. I will show you the other side of the tunnel.
Did they build this up, or these are rocks?
Oh, this was built up. So this was built some 300 years ago, because this, when you look down, you are looking at the tunnel right now. Can you see it? Above the tunnel. So unfortunately, you couldn't go through the tunnel from the male dungeons because the entrance to the tunnel is closed. The exit is at the other side. The exit is also closed. So there's no way we can go through the tunnel. So this was a spy hole. Some of the guards will stand here, scream, make a mockery on African ancestors to keep walking towards the door of no return. So I'll show you the exit of the tunnel.
In the depths of history, a tale unfolds of a trader brought darkness, of stories untold. Across the mighty oceans, lives were torn apart. A chapter stained in blood, etched in human hearts. Oh, the transatlantic slave trade, it grell and beat a storm. Only she is suffering, forever to transform. But from the ashes rise, voices singing free, united against injustice for all humanity. From Africa's shores, don't all the families broken from the start. Shapes of despair, where home was but a trap. They sailed towards the future, to the world unknown. So that ocean looks like mere commodities, treated like some property, stripped off their dignity. The cotton fields of sorrow, where dreams would we die. Yet I miss the pain. Their spirits rose red river. Oh, the transatlantic slave trade, the grell and beat a storm. Only shame, chains and suffering, forever to transform. But from the
200 plus. So if you combine the numbers together, the female dungeons can hold 500. The male dungeons between 500 to 1,000. So at the time, this building can hold 1,500 in terms of capacity. This is the big. So this was one of the main trafficking routes along the coast of West Africa and Central Africa. So I'll show you this room. Please watch your step. It's a step down. So this is another torture room for our female ancestors. They were also forced in here to wait for 1 month to 3 months. They were forced naked in these dungeons. Women menstruated here without any sanitary pads or without any clean or proper wash. And let's look at the number, over 100 to 200 plus, meaning you find some of them even standing. You were squeezed in. You could not even go down. So basically, you would stand and menstruate on yourself, right? Then get to the ground. You menstruate without any clean or proper wash. You were forced. You were stuck in it for months and for centuries. Yeah, so the conditions here was very horrible. You know, women were stuck in menstrual blood, urine, vomit, blood, tears, and sweat. Because if you should squeeze 200 people in here, with that as ventilation, the temperature is going to be bad. It's going to be very hot in here. Don't forget the rape also. Many of our African ancestors, women, girls, were raped by Europeans. I always say if the walls could talk, you would have heard more than what I'm saying to you. So this is the torture our African ancestors endured on the south. Another worse thing happened on the ships. Another worse thing happened to them on the plantation farm. So it was from one worse situation to the other. Any questions or comments? Brothers and sisters, my own. Yeah, in some of the states in the United States, I think in Florida, Miami. Yeah, because I believe that a tree without a root would definitely come down. So they don't want us to know our roots. They don't want us to know what happened. Because, you see, most of us still live in our enslavers' world or our oppressors' world because we don't know. Yes, most of us, we don't know we have a problem. Right? And if you don't have a problem, if you know you don't have a problem, you don't make any amends. So this is what they want things to be, because they still want to manipulate, they still want to cheat, they still want to do evil. So exactly. So without you knowing, they do that to you. Because when you know, because knowledge is power, when you know, they can do that to you. They can't do that to you. Yeah. We shall follow the footsteps of our ancestors today, but surely we shall all return.
Forever to transform. From the ashes rise, voices sing free, united against injustice.
All right, so through the door of no return, in chains and in shackles, all the captives were forced down to the shore, forced on boat and forced on the ships. So that's how come we are saying that when you go through this door, you will not return. But today I want you to look up again. We have another inscription that says door of return. It's very symbolic. We had it there in 1998. And for the first time in the motherland, in Ghana, we celebrated Emancipation Day. And when we had it in September 1998, brothers and sisters all over the diaspora, America, Jamaica, England, Barbados, all over, many returned. Excuse me. And for the first time, they returned 2 human remains of former enslaved Africans who died in Jamaica and the United States. They exhumed their remains again, placed them in casket, and returned the remains to Cape Coast Castle. We received them, had the formal traditional funeral ceremony for them, and afterwards the 2 remains was buried 60 kilometers from here at a town we call Asen Manso. Fortunately, yes. So they were buried there today. Yes, Crystal, Carson, and the unknown one from Barbados. Yeah, so we celebrate Year of Return, Beyond Return, Emancipation Day, Pan-African Historical Festival, because constantly there is a need that we remind ourselves of what happened to us. And we forge ways of unity. By forging ways of unity, we develop and grow as people of African descent. So today I will say to you that it's a joyous moment today, because in their laws, it was meant that slavery was supposed to be perpetual. It was meant that you were not supposed to return. But it did not happen because our ancestors rebelled against it. Our ancestors fought. So you are here today because Turner fought for you to be here. Angela Davis fought for you to be here. Sojourner Truth fought. Desolin fought. Toussaint Louverture fought. Booker and all our African ancestors fought for you to be here. And today I will not call you tourist, because you are no tourist. You are home on pilgrimage to unlearn all those lies and deceptions. You are here today as members of the soil. And I will also say you are the wildest stream of our ancestors, because many wish to embark upon the journey back to the motherland. They couldn't. But you are here representing millions of them. So I'll welcome you home once again. Yeah. Okay, so we are not done yet. We have 2 more places to visit. I would show you the condemnation room where our ancestors who rebelled and fought for freedom and liberation were killed. And I will show you the auction room also. Yeah, so I think it would be good if you have a picture in front of the door of return. So that block you see there was the administration block. So first of all, understand that a company called the Royal Adventurers of England constructed this building to traffic people out. So these rooms were offices for the company. Excuse me. And again, 1672, King Charles II of England will grant another charter to the Royal African Company of England to come here and traffic people. From 1672 onwards, the Royal African Company of England will traffic some 70,000 Africans per year. So these were offices for them. And this block, the first floor and some part of the second floor were residences for the traffickers.
Wow.
And this side of the last floor was the slave market they called Palaver Hall. So the Palaver Hall, the British will wait to be supplied with captives. They buy them there, brand them here, and keep them in the dungeon. So let's dwell a bit on this, because I know there's this Eurocentric version of what Africans endured. This is what Europeans will tell you home. Oh, your brother sold you. Your people here had nothing doing. They were uncivilized. They were savages. They were just fighting among themselves. They met the situation and just took advantage of it. But that's a lie. That's a propaganda. We lived in peace and harmony with each other. The subject of slavery was practiced in every civilization. We had civilization here. Africa gave science, mathematics, and all that to the world. Here, we never practiced chattel slavery. What we practiced here was more of integration than slavery. We had kingdoms, we had empires, we had diversity, we had ethnic groups. One will fight the other to acquire more land and not to degrade humans. So let's say you fight my ethnic group, or you fight my group, or you fight my kingdom, and you defeat. You will not enslave me and my people, but rather you will integrate my people into your society. So we become citizens in another society, not slaves. This was what was practiced here before Europeans came. Europeans came and they were surprised. They even wrote in their journals that they are surprised to know that Africans were made up of different ethnic groups, diversity, but yet they coexisted with each other so well. Europeans only came to exploit, to steal, to cause chaos. Realizing that Africans were in peace with each other, they only will orchestrate wars among us, cause confusion, manipulate, side Africans against each other, hit their heads against each other, supply firearms to them, supply gunpowder. The more they fight, the more they sell people. So they created that chaos. When Europeans cannot use Africans to manipulate, Europeans themselves will do the damage. So for example, when you go to Central Africa, when you go to Congo and Angola, Portugal will go inland, raid, kidnap, and traffic people out. There's a woman called Nzinga of Angola, yes. Nzinga will not second to the trafficking of her people. Nzinga will fight the Portuguese. Nzinga will, attack Portuguese when they raid people and free the people. Nzinga became an enemy of Portugal and Europe because they felt he was distracting business. They captured her. She had to accept Christianity to avoid a jail sentence in Europe. So Europeans rather created chaos and confusion among us, disoriented us to fight. So whenever they tell you that side of the story, tell them that they should tell it all. Because whenever they tell you that, it's more of, you being miseducated again. Because now, oh, okay, my brother sold me and there's no need to come here. So it's good you came here to listen, to see the reality on the ground for yourselves. And I also say, in our quest to learn about ourselves, please let us take caution. Let us learn from the right source. Because other than that, you can still be miseducated in 2025.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Right, so let me show you the last place. Let's have a look at that. Yeah. Watch your head. Yeah, come in, watch your head. Watch your head. On your way in, watch your head. Watch your head. Watch your head. Watch it. So the first thing I would like you to observe, watch your head, please. The first thing I would like you to observe here is you see there's no windows here. They built it as such. I'll just turn off the light for some few seconds. Okay. I'm the one back. Okay, all right. Thank you. So the first door was locked. The second door was also locked. They locked all the doors up. No ventilation, no light, no food, no water. The last person was suffocated to death. The bodies were shown to the others. The bodies were thrown into the sea. I always say this, our ancestors, we thank you for the freedom. We thank you for breaking those chains. We pray that you instill in us that spirit of determination, courage, love, and unity. Wherever you are, ancestors, may your souls rest in perfect peace. Amen. Ashe. Well, we can come out again. Watch your heads. Watch your heads, yeah? Watch your heads.